All right, we are live. Welcome to Monday Night Live. Let me get this banner going across here. Just to remind everybody to subscribe and smash that thumbs up.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's, everybody.
For sure.
Yeah. Do you have a good New Year's, Michael?
Yeah. Actually, my daughter's birthday is December 31st. So we took a trip down to Springfield, went to the Wonders of Wildlife exhibit. That was pretty cool. Worth going to for sure.
I just got back from there. I was down there last week.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. That was, I think, our 4th or 5th time down there.
So it was the first time I'd been there.
My wife and I went out last May, I believe it was. And we went one day, and then we're like, you know what? We'd like to come back and do this again. So we ended up getting season passes. It actually worked out because we were coming back out for going to Branson and Table Rock with the family later on in the year. So it worked out perfect because there's some kind of package they got going. But so we've tried to utilize it, even though it's 4.5 hours from the house. We try to utilize it at least a couple times.
Sure. Anybody with kiddos, that's probably worth it.
Oh my gosh.
You can spend all day in there.
Yeah, my 2-year-old, my 7-year-old just eat it up. So
yeah, for sure.
It's awesome.
Yeah, we went down there. It's been like 2 years ago. We went down there, and it was almost overstimulating, the amount of like displays and the trophy mounts, and it was, yeah, I highly recommend it, man. It's a little pricey, but it's well worth it.
You get your money's worth for sure.
I agree 100%.
And if you want to go through the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, which I highly recommend, you don't want to have your kids with you.
No, we had to set ours down and let her walk around a little bit. I kind of got a little emotional walking through there.
Yeah,
I couldn't explain it. It was pretty cool, pretty dang.
Well, the little hair that I have, it stood up. So
yeah, just seeing like where the sports came and like all the major moments and memorabilia and stuff in there, it was legit. I was happy to see it. I definitely want to go back and spend a little more time in there.
For sure.
All right, man. We got a good crowd in here already. This is awesome.
Holy cow.
Yeah, we're rolling, man. Just as a reminder, we are doing a huge Croc-A-Gator Bait Company giveaway tonight. Joey's supplied a bunch of goodies. It's going to be all your favorite Croc-A-Baiter stuff. Croc-A-Gator, not Croc-A-Baiter. Croc-A-Gator stuff. It's actually going to be Michael's favorite stuff, according to Joey. So it's going to be a good giveaway. And you guys that are new on the stream, if you don't know how the giveaway works, sometime during the stream, we're going to make a reference to Sasquatch. So when we make that reference, guess a number between 1 and 200. Michael's already picked the number before the show. And whoever guesses that number that Michael picked is going to win the Croc-A-Gator giveaway. And it's going to be huge. Bunch of good stuff, man. Bunch of good stuff. We'll talk a little bit about some of the What's that?
I hope you wrote my number down. I already forgot.
I wrote it down, man.
I
got it right here. So we got Zach in here. What's up, Zach? Good to see you. Jay Beffa. Jay Beffa's been on Lake of the Ozarks a couple times. Phil's in here. What's up? Had a great trip with Phil catching smallmouth down there.
You smashed
Clear. Yeah, that was a special day. But that lake is, it wasn't even like a week, I think, after that, and it went up like 16 feet.
Yeah.
It's one of those lakes that just goes up and down, up and down. It's got a huge drain system, and you get a couple inches of rain, and it just swells up. But I think it had went back down, but we just got another 3 inches of rain. So I'm sure it is
high and muddy.
Yeah. Got Chris in here. Shad, what's up, man? Andy Leonard. Daniel T, if you're on here, I just got your giveaway stuff packaged up before the stream. I've got it upstairs, and I will be taking it to work tomorrow, and it'll be on its way. So sorry about the delay. Things are busy. I'm a letter carrier for the Postal Service, and the last couple of weeks have been absolutely bonkers. So things are finally starting to settle down. Zach said he's ready for the Wapapello circuit to fire back up with Doug. So we're gonna dive into this. We're gonna talk about all things Lake of the Ozarks and the Ozarks area, fall fishing into winter and then into pre-spawn, and just anything else you guys out there that are watching want to bring up and ask Michael, feel free. This is like an open forum, just a bunch of fish heads talking fishing. So we just kind of got a loose agenda, and we'll take it wherever it goes. So Michael, first of all, just give us a little bit of background information, where are you from and what's some of your history?
For sure. So I grew up about 15 miles from Lake of the Ozarks north. I grew up in Versailles. I didn't really start fishing until later in life for me, I guess, relative to my age. About 18 years old, I went to college and joined Mizzou's bass fishing team. Got a job at Bass Pro, and it kind of spiraled from there. I started working at a tackle shop in high school, but I didn't get any boat time. So once I went to college, I started fishing some collegiate events, and then after that moved to the BFLs and fished those for a while. I won the BFL in 2019. It was 4th of July weekend, so won that tournament with 24-13 or something like that, and told myself before that whole year, if I won one or finished well, I'd jump in the Costa. Jumped in the Costa that fall, cut my first check, so it was kind of downhill from there, and I've been fishing everything I could since. And then last year, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the lake froze like the last 2 weeks of February, and we had a Toyota that first week of March, and we didn't know if we'd be able to fish it or not. You know, the lake's frozen like 6 inches. I have a picture on my phone of the lake. A chunk of ice is just frozen thick. So we did end up getting that event in, and I ended up winning that one. So, you know, two wins under my belt, and, you know, hopefully more to come.
I fished that tournament as a co-angler, and man, it was crazy. We were down there a couple days before the tournament, and we had to break out of the cove that we were staying in every morning, and it was just like a little bit of open water in the middle of the lake, and you couldn't really fish off a main lake. I mean, you'd start to get close to a cove or, you know, a pocket or something, and it was just frozen solid. It was something else, man.
Even during the tournament, every day it was freezing, or every night it was freezing, and you'd have to be at the right place at the right time. There was a little bit of open water, but not much. I mean, they push takeoff back to 8 o'clock the first 2 days of the tournament.
Yeah.
And it was, the crazy thing about that was it wasn't below freezing during that event. You know, we had some extreme cold weather leading up to it, but at night I think it was getting down to like the 40s, and the lake was still freezing, which was crazy. Just, you know, no wind, and it's sitting there super still all night long, and the water temps, I guess, were low enough that it was still freezing every night.
Yeah, that was weird. I was trying to figure that out. We talked about that. I was kind of theorizing that maybe there was some ice that was floating down river and causing everything to back up, but you didn't see like chunks, you know, it was like actual smooth ice.
I think it just gets so still at night. There was no wind blowing, and it was so still that, you know, that water temp was like 36 or something like that. And so it was just cold enough with the pressure and everything that it was skimming up every night.
Yeah, my buddy Mike Marfell, I was staying with him, and we were staying on the 26-mile marker of the Osage, and we were running over to PB2 by water, and we got out of his cove there and just put it up on pad, and we were just going through 1/4-inch ice, and we thought we were okay, but after he got his boat on the trailer and drove home to St. Louis, he got to looking, and his keel guard was just completely ripped off. Like the first 2 foot of it was just peeled back.
I heard a lot of people saying their keel guards were ripped up.
Yeah, he didn't have any fiberglass damage, but he definitely had to replace his keel guard.
Yeah, and then like the last day, Mark said, you know, it's not going to get cold tonight. I mean, the low was like 48 or something. It was hardly below 50. So Mark McWall was like, we're going to take off at 7 o'clock or whatever the standard takeoff time was. And lo and behold, it was frozen.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. I know the guy Drew the first day, he was wanting to fish the Graveway. So we ran up that way, and, you know, we kind of tried to fish some coves and pockets along the way, but you'd shut down, and as you kind of started idling in, boom, the whole cove was frozen. We got up towards the Graveway, and the whole mouth of the Graveway was frozen, so we never made it up in there.
I fished the Graveway some. I fished, you know, the Buck Creeks and down towards the dam. Luckily I had a couple spots that weren't freezing, so I had somewhere to go to buy some time until the lake thawed out. You know, 10 o'clock or so, it would open back up, and pretty much everywhere was open, at least where I was fishing. So that was nice. I had a couple areas that were holding fish that weren't freezing, and maybe there's something to be said there, that maybe that water is a little bit warmer, I guess, or
that time of the year, just a couple degrees will make a big difference in turning the fish on and shutting them completely off.
You know, maybe just like a little pocket or something that was getting more sun and less wind, or, you know, who knows. But there's a couple areas that weren't freezing all the way at night.
Stephanie says she's having problems with the video freezing up. Is anybody else having problems? If so, just leave a comment and we'll just keep rolling. My internet's decent here, but sometimes it gets a little spotty because I got 2 kids up there and they're, doing roadblocks or whatever they do. So if it keeps cutting up, I'll run up there and tell them to get off the.
I should be okay on my end. I've not had any problems. So
good deal. There was a question on here. I definitely want to dive into that Toyota Series tournament, but let's. Nate has a question real quick, and he wants to know. He says, "Would you ask Mike what he thinks about early pre-spawn and how close or how far fish winter from bedding areas?"
That's a good question. I typically catch the fish a lot further back than what people would think in the wintertime. I've had discussions with some of my friends that fish or travel, and I definitely think there's something to be said about main lake fish too. I just think that they're harder to find in the winter. They just get so grouped up that you got to land right on them to find them, and they're just a little bit easier to pinpoint in the creeks. So, typically a lot of the fish like in the Toyota Series event, and for example, I caught a lot of those fish really close to spawning areas. I'm talking like 2/3 or 75% back in the creeks. So some of my best areas are pretty far back there, and I think early pre-spawn or even wintering fish, they don't go far. Do I think those fish go out to the main lake in the summertime? Possibly. I think there's a lot of fish that don't leave the creek ever, and there's a lot of fish that live on the main lake, and then you've got fish that do both. So that's a pretty good question, but I'd say a lot of my best wintering areas are pretty darn close to spawning areas.
Yeah, I'd say if a creek has everything a bass needs to live in, there's no reason for them to leave. If it's got deep water, it's got good channel swings, got plenty of cover and plenty of bait, they're going to live their whole life there. There's no reason for them to go out to the main lake. Yeah,
and that's kind of the deal with the Ozark lakes, not just Lake of the Ozarks, but Table Rock, Bull Shoals, Norfolk, any of that stuff. These lakes have super deep creeks that run all, deep water that runs all the way back to the back of the creek. And, there's millions and millions of shad. Anybody that's fished this lake in the fall, there's no shortage of shad here. So you're talking all the forage the fish need, all the water depth they need, all the protection and cover that they need. I mean, they don't need to get to the main lake.
Well, a lot of those fish that live in those creeks don't even know the main lake exists.
For sure.
I mean, they've been born, raised, and they're going to probably die in one of those creeks unless they get caught by a tournament angler that takes them to another creek.
Yeah.
And I think back to the original question from the bedding areas and what you were talking about, the shallow water, I think a lot of times that we always forget as fishermen that there's always fish shallow. And Absolutely. You found that out this week.
Yeah, you get a little rain, you get a little bit of stain. Even if the water's, in the low 40s, those fish will slide up, especially, after a couple of days and they get acclimated to that stain. They'll slide up for sure.
And then moving into spring, I know we're fast forwarding here. Those big ones, in my opinion, those are the first ones to move up.
Yeah.
If you want to catch a giant bag in the spring, start fishing shallow before everybody else is.
Yeah, you don't even have to. I mean, we were out last weekend and we were catching fish in 6-7 feet of water, and on the forward-facing sonar, you wouldn't believe how many fish were back there. Not just largemouth, but whites, hybrids. I caught a catfish on live scope. I got a pretty sick video of catching a catfish on live scope on a jerkbait, actually, of all things. So, I mean, just millions and millions of fish living in 8 foot of water or less in the back of these creeks. So they're still there.
I was watching a video that you posted on your Facebook page. It was from a while back, but I think it was some Australian guys that were live scoping at night and catching those, all that big. It's a big game fish.
It's not a barramundi. It's a Murray cod.
Yeah, Murray cod, man. That
that video is sick.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It's pitch black, and they're live scoping. Yeah, they're live scoping. And
it was a Lowrance video that I shared. It's on Active Target.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. It's on Active Target. My bad. Yeah. Forward facing sonar, Active Target, and you can see it all go down, and then he just hooks
you
up.
You can see this fish's tail just kicking up at this bait, following it real slow, and they must have done it in super deep water because that fish didn't look big on the screen. and then they net this Murray cod, and it's like 4 feet long. I mean,
wow,
it looks,
I'll have to go check that out.
yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
For sure.
So you're talking about forward-facing sonar in shallow water. How shallow can you go?
You can go pretty shallow, a couple feet, 4 or 5
Really?
foot. Oh yeah.
How far can you see out?
So that's the deal. The deeper the water you're fishing, the further you can push your live scope out.
Mm-hmm.
And as you get shallower, you got to reel it back in. Because once you get out there, say you're in 10, 12 foot of water, you can't run that thing at 60, 70, 80 feet. Okay. I'm going to bring it back to like 45, something like that. Now, if you get below 10 foot, 30, 35 foot is all you're going to get out of it. But, you're not casting a whole lot further than that anyways, whenever you're fishing that shallow.
Right.
Yeah.
So
we got 125 people on here. That's awesome. I'm glad a bunch of people showed up for this stream. It's going to be a good one. We're just getting started, and we are going to be doing a huge Crockett Gator giveaway shortly. So stay tuned for that. You're going to be guessing the number between 1 and 200 when I reference something to do with Sasquatch. And this is not the Sasquatch that counts right now. We're not doing that yet. So just stay tuned, but that's going to come up here shortly. You're going to have a really, really good prize package. Todd Michael says, Randy's post-tournament rant did more for you than winning the tournament. Talking about blocking, I guess.
Yeah, that stirred up a stink.
Yeah, he's got the forward-facing sonar now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to. I'm tired of.
Well, you know who else has got them on the way?
Me and you.
We do.
This guy and this guy.
That's right.
Very nice. Yeah. This part of the country, anyway, you definitely need to have it. But people think it plays all year long, and it really doesn't. You can use it in the summertime, but if you have much, at Lake of the Ozarks, we've got crazy amounts of boat traffic, and it doesn't play. It's if you've got waves or even wind, it just really scales it back. So it's a niche deal. You can catch them on it in the winter and in the pre-spawn, but if it gets super windy or boat traffic, it's really it takes that out of the equation. So it's not something that you catch them with all year long.
Here's a good question from Martin. He says, how long had you been using forward-facing sonar to feel comfortable fishing a big tournament strictly with it? I
got a pretty good story about that. So
all right,
around here, the Bass and Bob Winter Series is a big deal. It's super important. All the biggest, best fishermen all show up. So it's a team tournament. There's no A-rig allowed, and it's like the cream of the crop around here throughout the winter. It's something everybody fishes. And one of my good buddies, Brad Jelinek, who's an incredible live skill fisherman, he told me a story one day that we got second in the tournament and they won, I believe. And he said, I have a 5-pounder following my clown. He might get mad at me for telling this story, but that's okay. So
it's okay. Nobody's watching.
Yeah. Sorry, Jelly. But I asked him, I said, you're watching that bait all the time? He said every cast. He's watching it every single cast. So I'm like, I looked at Austin, my fishing partner, and I told him, I said, we need to go figure this out. So we went down to Table Rock that next weekend. This is middle to late January, mind you. Toyota's in March. And I've got another video catching some fish on A-rig at Table Rock in 65 foot of water. And we got I'm talking like the A-rig is in 65 foot. And there's just 15 or 20 or 50, I don't know, spotted bass, 2.5 pounds and bigger. And we spent the whole weekend wrecking fish down there on an A-rig, watching every single fish bite it. So we come back and the lake freezes over. We had that one weekend. The lake froze for 2 weeks. And the VFL or the Toyota was like the day or two after it froze or thawed. And that's all I had. So I really am pretty new to the forward facing sonar. So that was just kind of a unique deal where he said one thing to me. I'm like, wait a second. I need to be watching that thing all the time instead of just, kind of scanning around or whatever. So he said that. We went down to Table Rock and figured it out. And lo and behold, Toyota, the rest is history.
Yeah. I've had a chance to play with forward facing sonar a couple times, and it's fairly self-explanatory. I mean, the actual process of casting the bait. I think the thing that took me the most to get used to is you're used to let me phrase this right. So it's reading from left to right. Like when you cast, your bait's going to land on the right side of your screen, as to where when you're looking at side scan, it's different. So it took me a little bit to get oriented on what I was actually looking at on the graph, because we're used to.
I never even thought of it that way. Yeah, but yeah.
And then, one brand has the boats on the right side and you're looking out left, and the other brand has the boat on the left side looking out right. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you just got to kind of get used to that. But as far as actually getting your transducer pointed towards the fish and then casting down the head of the trolling motor, and then you kind of get an idea of how far your cast is. 40 feet's not that far really on a cast. That's one thing that surprised me. And then watching that bait go down, and as soon as you see it, it's on the same plane as the fish or just a little bit above it, you start your retrieve. And another thing is how fast your bait rises when you're reeling in. You can really fish really slow to keep it at a an even plane.
Try catching them in 70 foot on it.
That's crazy, dude. That is crazy. So
I mean, it takes forever to get it down there. And you turn the reel handle like this, and it's just climbing. I mean, it's hard to keep it down there. But one of the easiest ways to figure out your distances and stuff, but like you said, 40 feet is not very far.
Right.
And if you outthrow the screen, it makes it incredibly difficult to find your bait. Incredibly difficult. You have to throw your bait inside of what your range is set. And if you can follow it all the time, it's a lot easier. And one thing that I see Mike's question there, but let me finish real quick. One thing that I would recommend people that are trying to figure out their distances, or at least what they're looking at, is to go to something that what it looks like above the water. Say like a bridge piling or something like that. So for one, that bridge piling, it says it's at 60 feet. Well, you can reference it out of the water too. And you're thinking, well, that doesn't seem as far. That doesn't seem like it's 60 feet away. But, it's not that far. And then you learn, one, what you're looking at above and below the water, and two, how far things are. So
yeah, that's good. That's really good. I was talking about a similar thing with my buddy Ron the other day, talking about counting an A-rig down. And one thing he recommended was getting in like 10 foot of water. Say you're on a flat and it's 10 foot of water. Make that cast, give it slack line and just count until it hits the bottom at 10 foot. If it takes 3 seconds, then at 20 foot, it's going to take 6 seconds.
And that's something you can do without live scope or without a forward facing.
Right. So if you're out scanning, side scanning, or you're down scanning, you see fish, you're in 30 foot of water and the fish are in 15, make that cast, count down to 4 seconds, and you should be in the ballpark with an A-rig.
For sure.
So yeah, Mike's question, that kind of segued right into what you were talking about. How far was your setting out on your live scope in the Toyota tournament?
So in that tournament, if I remember right, I was running it like 70 or 80 feet. I think it was 70. I don't remember exactly. That's something I change it all day, every day. Just depends on how deep the water is and what I'm doing. But I mean, like I said, if I'm fishing 50 foot of water, I may have it at 100 foot out. And clarity helps with that too. If it's real clear water, you can get away with running it further out or deeper. If the water's clear, a lot of times I'm going to be fishing a little bit deeper. But I think in the Toyota, I was running it at 70. And here recently, I've been running it more like 80 or 90.
So how close do the fish let you get to them? Have you noticed that sometimes you get a little bit too close and they get skittish? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the biggest thing you don't want to do is overrun it. You can get pretty close if you didn't like run up on what you're fishing and back off. Like the fish, a lot of times I'm just catching suspended fish that aren't really on anything. I caught a top 10 at Norfolk at the BFL regional, and those fish weren't using anything. We're just, open water fishing 100 feet of water. And you can't get too close or backwash those fish. But, I'd say a lot of the time, and even that's something the camera boat operator was noting in the Toyota, was I was only throwing it like 30 or 40 feet. So getting pretty close to those fish.
Here's a good, interesting question.
I was just going to point that one out. Yeah.
This one? Okay.
Yeah.
From Matt. He says fish might spend their whole life in a creek until they go to weigh-in, do you believe fish return to areas where they were caught after being released from the weigh-in sites?
I think that all depends on how far they got ran. So, you fish Ozarks, fish Kentucky Lake, fish that got caught in New Johnsonville and got drugged to the dam or over to, Barkley.
To the moors or whatever.
Yeah, they're not, in my opinion, they're not
No.
making their way back to New Johnsonville unless it's on another boat.
I don't think that they know that's how far they are away from home or exactly how to get back there. I mean,
I may be completely wrong, but I don't think they got GPS.
Yeah. I would say a very small percentage of fish, at least. Very small.
Even a 10 or 15 miles, I would say a very, very small percentage of fish will make it back even to the same creek or the area. What they're going to do, in my opinion, is they're going to find something that's very, very similar to what they're comfortable living in and end up making their new home there.
I would agree with that. They may go somewhere that's similar, or that's what they're used to. That's the environment they want to be in. But as far as going to the same creek or same spot, I don't think that's happening too much. They may swim upstream. They may go 30 miles, but the odds of them ending up in the same place, I don't think are great.
Yeah, we've had Sean Hurst. He's a fisheries biologist for the Illinois Department of Natural Resources in Jackson County, and we've talked about that question before. And he thinks that a lot of the fish will stay in the general vicinity of the release marina or boat ramp for a week or so until they kind of get their bearings straight, and then they'll kind of start venturing out. Some will stay real close if they've got proper cover and groceries, bait fish and the food that they need, and then there's a few that will swim quite a ways to get back to in the same general vicinity of where they were caught. And I've also seen studies where they say like smallmouth. Smallmouth are notorious for making, larger migrations from the release site back towards their the places that they were caught.
They're more of a pelagic fish.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be in that open water and swim, and that's all they do is swim. Who knows how far they can make it in, a week, 2 weeks, a month, half a year. I mean, they never stop swimming. So, and I think there's also something to be said for fish, especially dominant fish or fish that are coming from a long ways away or somewhere where there's not a huge population of fish, not wanting to be with thousands and thousands of bass. You take Lake of the Ozarks, for example. They'd be stacked like cordwood in the glaze or in PB2. If the fish never left, they obviously have to leave. There's more fish in the glaze than there is anywhere else in the lake, but nearly every single tournament fishes out of PB2. So you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of fish every single year. Areas that you would think don't have a huge population of fish or aren't getting restocked all the time, they still replenish eventually. So those fish have to come from somewhere.
Yeah, and you just think about a fish swimming 1 mile an hour, which is just a leisurely fin flip. That's 1 mile away from the marina in 1 hour. And they're not going straight down the middle of the lake. They're following the contours a lot of times or the creek channels. But in one day, they could easily go 3 or 4 or 5 miles if they wanted to. It's interesting. We've had Dion Hibden on here before, and he was talking about the amount of fish he catches in the glaze that don't have any kind of hook mark or signs of being caught.
Like they've never been caught before.
Never been caught. You would think every fish in there had been caught before, but that's not the truth.
I watched it real quick. I watched a study one time about it was somebody in Texas. I think maybe I'm not sure, but somebody in Texas did a study in a small lake where they tagged every single fish that was in the lake, and some fish would get caught 8, 9, 10 times, and then there's others that never got caught. So there's something to be said there for fish.
Was that Sean that was talking about that?
No, I think that was Ken Smith. Knows the biologist down there in Texas, and he was talking about that study. That was a super interesting study. Yeah. And they were talking about how sometimes it's genetically bred off to the offspring, like that gene that causes those fish to be caught less and not bite an artificial lure is transferred from offspring, because the fish that didn't get caught, they moved them into another pond, and they had offspring, and then they moved those fish into another pond, and those fish never bit either. It's it's a pretty amazing study.
Yeah, I mean, I guarantee you there's a lot more 10-pounders in this lake than we give them credit for, and they're probably fish that that in my mind they don't relate to the bank, and B, probably don't bite a lot of artificial lures. I think it's more crappie and 16-inch gizzard shad.
Yeah, we're not throwing 16-inch swim baits. Most people aren't.
Yeah.
What's up, Mike? We were just talking about you. We were talking about that Toyota series last year and the ice and your keel guard getting ripped off the front of your boat. Good to see you on here, man. Let me scroll down through here and
Cody
see if we got more
says that
questions.
shelf behind you is leaning a little bit.
I'll have to ask your girlfriend about that.
Yeah.
Well, no, he says because all that
put,
weight on that one side.
You need to put some
you need to get another one on the other side. There you go.
You need a middle support.
Yeah. I need a few more trophies.
There you go.
We got Rich in here. What's up, Hella Bass? Good to see you, man. Let's see here. Let's scan through some more.
Everybody's asking about our forward-facing sonar.
Yeah, forward-facing sonar. Yeah, Daniel, I was on the fence between the Lowrance and Garmin, and I went ahead and went with the Garmin, but I've been in the boat with both of them, and they're both really, really solid. So if somebody was out there looking to buy forward-facing sonar, those are the two best in my opinion. I've seen the Humminbird stuff, and I think it's a little bit behind.
I'm going Lowrance next year. Super excited about it. Super excited.
That's awesome, man. From what I've seen, that once you get that fish in the cone, you can get out there a little bit further. It's got that 18-degree cone versus the 20-degree cone, and I think it's just stays crisper further out there.
Yeah, I'm constantly panning too. I mean, so I never stop panning with the trolling motor, never. And so I think that smaller cone may help you be a little more dialed in.
Riley Phillips Fishing says, have you tried perspective mode on forward-facing sonar when lake levels like Truman are up in the bushes?
I have not. Something that I've really been debating about is going with 2 live scopes or 2 forward-facing sonar, 2 active targets on this new boat, and running one in perspective style mode and one in more traditional stance at the same time. Shin Fukai almost won the Bass Pro Tour event on Chickamauga, I believe, doing that, catching fish that were suspended. And then you get to see the lateral movement left to right along with watching your lure. So maybe not this boat, but maybe in the future that's something I'll mess around with. Pretty excited about that. Definitely going to try the perspective style transducer mount, but I don't know if I'll do the double yet. That's a big undertaking.
You're gonna have to get another battery.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to win another tournament.
Yeah, Josh says drives me crazy when people say, yeah, he's got forward-facing sonar, wonder why he won. It helps, but you still got to learn the system. Does it help? Absolutely, man. That is so true. You still have to know how to find the fish, where the fish are going to be based on the seasonal patterns, and then how to set up on the fish. It's like anything else. when side scan
when side scan came out, people were saying the same thing.
Yeah, you still got to be able to find.
It's another tool in our box, and does it help? Absolutely, it helps. But can you get, and to your point earlier, Michael, can you get spun out on it? Can you overuse it? Can you use it at the wrong time? Absolutely. Yeah. So it's just like the A-rig. It's just like a jerk bait. It's just like a spinner bait. There's times and places to use it, and then there's times and places to put it down, put it off to the side, and turn it off.
I mean, how many, if you take a jab, what percentage of tournament anglers have live scope or forward-facing sonar, I should say?
Probably 80% if they're
80%.
serious.
Yeah, or all 80% cash and checks?
No.
So, I mean,
go ahead.
There's a lot that goes into it. And like I said earlier, I mean, I would say probably 20% of the year, maybe a little more than that. Does it play in tournaments and only on certain fisheries? So it's not a cure-all. You don't install live scope and then 20 pounds jumps in the boat.
I agree.
There's a lot that goes into it. And
you can take that technology away from any of the top fishermen, and they're still going to be the top fishermen.
Yeah,
most of the time.
You might have to take a different approach, but
right. I mean, Jacob Wheeler, he's going to catch them whether he's got no electronics in his boat or not. That's just
dude's a stud.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And you look at a guy like John Cox, talk about no electronics.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Keith
dominating in 5 foot or less.
Yeah.
everywhere it goes.
Against people that have $20,000 worth of electronics
on the front of their boat.
On the front of their boat. Yeah. That's just the front of their boat.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. But it's cool. I'm really excited about getting it because the situation that I see it really coming in handy for me is this time of the year and like the fall when anytime there's schooling fish involved and they're moving around. I think that's where it's going to play for me. You know, how many times have you been out there watching fish bust and they go down and you lose them? You know, like, where did they go? Did they go to the right? Did they go to the left? Did they go away from the boat towards the boat? And you can swing the boat around with side scan and locate them. But if you've got forward facing sonar, you can pivot that head of the trolling motor in real time and relocate those fish. And at least, you know, I'm not saying you're going to catch them, but at least you can be putting your bait around them. And that's a big, huge help. So that's why I'm excited for that kind of situation.
Yeah. I'm more excited about I'm don't get me wrong. I'm excited to see fish, see the movement of the fish, see how they react, but I'm more excited about not wasting time in casts.
Yeah.
Hitting there, even in the summer, you know, you may not be looking at fish, but looking at offshore structure, knowing where that piece of structure's at to make an accurate cast every single time. I mean, 0.1 helps a ton, but I'm still probably 50-50 with
I'd say
a
lot of the time those fish aren't even suspended either. You can't see them.
Right.
I cannot tell you how many times I've had fish come up off the bottom and eat my jerk bait that there was no trace of them. You would have guessed there's no fish there. You could have scanned it for an hour. Once they get within a couple feet of the bottom, I shouldn't say a couple feet. Probably once they get within 12 inches of the bottom, you can't see them until they show themselves. And once you catch one, there might be 20 of them, but they have this way of blending into the bottom. And anytime you go, you know, I worked at Bass Pro for 6 or 7 years in Columbia, so I got to watch those fish in the tank a lot. Half of the time, especially those big mature fish, lay with their belly on the bottom. I mean, I've caught lots of fish that have mud actually on their bottom. Not so much here because we have so much rock, but a lot of times I've caught fish that actually have mud on their belly. So, I mean, when they're down there, you can't even see them.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that before on this stream about scanning an area and not seeing fish. And then it's an area that, you know, fish live in. So you go ahead and put the trolling motor down and fish. And within a couple minutes, all of a sudden you start seeing life on your down scan. You know, those fish, they either heard the boat coming and they sucked up real tight to the bottom, or they moved out of range a little bit. And then once things quiet down, they've moved back and set up, you know, like they originally were.
Well, it seems like later on in the year, later on into the post spawn, I know we're in winter time now, but there's more boats on the lake. More people are scanning. More people are doing things. I think a lot of those fish, they either suck to the bottom or they jump out of wherever that point, the brush pile, and they'll suspend. Well, now they can't hide, but prior, you know, they were leaving the area, and then all of a sudden after everything quiets down, they slip back in. So
forward-facing sonar just doesn't work as good in the summer months. It's something about the water density or the boat traffic. Something about it doesn't work as good. Like, I catch a lot of fish using forward-facing sonar, but I'm not watching them actually commit to my bait or chase my bait. A lot of the time, you're like post-spawn, summertime, current schools of fish. Mm-hmm. I may look for them on my screen. Now, you're not going to see those pretty dots, you know, with a super clear image. It's a lot more cluttered, a lot more stuff in the water, but you can still see the fish, throw your bait to them. You know, I don't watch my lure all the way back to the boat that time of year. That's more of a pre-spawn through like late fall type deal.
Well, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, you look at side scan, you get your best picture in the dead of winter.
Yeah, right now.
On a side scan image. When the water's super, super cold, there's no algae blooms, there's no junk in the water, there's not a lot of sediment in the water, unless you get 3 inches of rain like we just had. But typically you go out there and you get some of the absolute best images that you're going to get when it's cold out. Makes perfect sense that live sonar is going to be the same way.
Ron says, he wonders about your thoughts about getting the forward-facing transducer off the trolling motor. So kind of like a turret, something you can adjust it separately from the shaft of the trolling motor.
I was thinking maybe he was talking about actually mounting it to the tube of to the head of the trolling motor or on the shaft, or I can touch on all three. I have not experimented with the turret. From what I've read and what I understand, it's a little slow. And to be quite honest, I really don't even use spot lock that much anymore. I use it when I'm culling, or maybe when I'm in the middle of catching a fish, or if I'm retying. But other than that, I'm panning all the time with my trolling motor. Always panning, always on it. So spot lock's not that important to me, so I don't really have any reason to take it off of the trolling motor. I like that I can control it like that. And that allows me to, line it up with the boat and a little bit of, that kind of thing. So I haven't experimented with the turret. If it's slow, that's not going to work for me. And from what I've read, that's kind of what I understand. It's not as reactive. It takes a little bit longer to go left or right. And a lot of time I'm constantly all day long like this, panning that trolling motor. And so that, that doesn't really work for me. And as far as like taking it off the shaft of the trolling motor, I'm pretty hard on my trolling motor, and I like to run around shallow just as much as I do deep. That's how I cut my teeth. So I can't in confidence mount it to the actual torpedo or cone of the trolling motor. I'm going to knock that thing off in a half.
That's a $1,500 transducer too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's with mine, there's certain times of year that I'm debating taking it off of the boat.
Mm-hmm. Maybe spring, you don't really need it.
Yeah. When I'm up there in 2 foot or less of water,
that's not a lot of grass. I don't even use regular sonar on my boat anymore. That is my only form of sonar on the front of the boat is forward facing sonar.
So you have one graph with forward facing sonar, and then do you have another unit with maybe map on it, or how do you have it set up?
Yeah, one for waypoints and contours and one for live scope. That's it.
Okay. Because that's something I'm debating on what to do right now. I've got a 9 right now on the front of my boat, and I think I'm going to leave that up there. And then when I get my forward-facing sonar, I'm going to stack it somehow and just do basically what you're talking about. Have one for mapping, and then the other one just for forward-facing sonar. And I've heard that from several people that they don't even use, downscan or 2D or anything once they've got
it. May not be quite as accurate as far as depth goes. I think it gets a little funky with that, like. If I have a jerkbait out there suspended perfectly, not floating or sinking, I can pan that trolling motor back and forth and make it look like it's in 6 foot, 7 foot, or 8 foot just by panning back across it. So there's a little bit of variance there, but not enough for me to add another unit to my boat. I've got a 9, like you said, I've got a 9-inch right now dedicated for map and waypoints, and then a 12-inch for sonar.
So Mike was asking, he says, did you drop on those fish or cast past them? I think he's referring to any fish that you would find on brush piles or something you're going to be using the forward-facing sonar. How do you set up on those fish before you make a cast?
The biggest thing is facing your boat into the wind. That's a big one. That's a big deal. Fishing into the wind all the time with live scope. That's something a lot of people don't do, and that's a big reason why they can't make it work all the time. It doesn't work all the time. If I'm fishing channel bends or something like that, I have a hard time. It's hard to fish perpendicular to your boat with forward-facing sonar. And when I'm doing that, if I'm fishing a channel bank or something, or maybe the wind's gassing in on a point, that's when I'm going to go to like a jig or something like that, a crocodile jig that I can throw up there on the bank and not necessarily have to watch my bait. So, but in like for the Toyota, for example, I was casting to him. In a tournament that I won, I learned more about forward-facing sonar than anyone was Norfolk this past fall. We fished Norfolk in September, and I caught every single fish on a drop shot, casting to them. Now, I had my range almost maxed out, 100 feet, throwing as far as I can with a spinning rod to schools of hundreds. I'm not kidding you, hundreds of spotted bass out on this giant underwater reef that went from 40 foot to like 120. And the fish would pull up on this, and I'm talking 30, 40, 60 fish, all in one big school, would pull up on this bar, feed for like 5-10 minutes, and then go back out into open water. And I could watch them do it all day long, up and down, up and down. And I would follow them out into that deep water. They wouldn't bite my bait, would not bite. They would not bite until they pulled up on that bar, the same school of fish. And the reason for that was they may, a lot of the day they'd come up schooling. So they're, I'm watching them school across this whole bar, 100 yards. They're just schooling all over, all the way across it. And when I would throw my bait to them, they would follow it down all the way to the bottom and then bite it. And a lot of the time they wouldn't bite it on that first drop. They'd all swim down and nose down on it. And then I'd have to reel super fast, as fast as I could reel, and watch the whole school come up after my drop shot. And then I'd have to kill it again, let it go all the way back to the bottom, and that's when they'd bite it. It's the craziest thing.
No, that's
and then 30 seconds to 5 minutes later, they're back in 110 foot of water, and I can't get them to bite.
So they're schooling on top of the water.
Yeah.
And then they're going back down to 100 foot.
Mm-hmm. No, they weren't 100 foot down. They were only 20, 30 foot down.
Over 100 foot of water.
Over 100 foot of water.
Okay.
And then because even out there, over that deep water, I could throw my bait to them, and they would chase it down to like 60 feet. But once it got to that depth, they'd turn around and swim back up. It had to hit the bottom. That was the craziest tournament. Watching those fish school all day long across this huge bar. Can't catch them schooling. You can't throw a spook or anything to them. They won't bite it. You could throw a drop shot to them. They'd swim down and follow it, and one would bite it.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
You're talking about the BFL regional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was down there too. And we fished one day we fished up by the dam in that area, and then another day we ran way up the river and fished some of the shallower, more stained stuff. But up there by the dam, we were having it was a similar situation, not as many fish as you're talking about, but being out there in 60 foot of water and throwing to those fish. And we were finding that a lot of times those fish would actually come up and meet the drop shot halfway and grab it. That was happening a little bit. And then
the first part of the week they were doing that. I would catch them on the fall, like the first day of the tournament and in practice. And then as the tournament went on, it got harder and harder to trick them.
Yeah, that lake is awesome for forward-facing sonar.
For sure. And I was just, as I fished, I just can't imagine how good of an A-rig lake that is. I can't imagine. Because there's nowhere for him to go. There's no trees. It's super clear. All there is drops and brush piles. Like, they've got to get in brush good. It's got to be an awesome, awesome lake to throw an A-rig.
And they're in there too. I mean, that tournament didn't show out, but I know that they're in there because I've seen some of the weights in spring.
Yeah, they live there. I mean, and there's a lot of fish. They just might not all be huge, but you can still have a ball.
Mario wants to know, what are some of your prime colors for winter fishing at Lake of the Ozarks? So we're kind of been talking about an A-rig. What are some of your colors of swim baits and that kind of thing for the A-rig?
A-rig, I keep it pretty simple. I won the Toyota on a 3.8 Kitech fat swing impact fat and sexy shad. Pretty much stick to sexy shad and Pro Blue Red Pearl almost all the time. Those are my go-tos. If it's cloudy or overcast, I'm throwing the Pro Blue Red Pearl. If I get some sun, I'm going with the sexy shad. That's as simple as I keep it. Now, jerkbait fishing is like one of my passions. I absolutely love jerkbait fishing, and I've got a million different jerkbaits in all different kinds of crazy colors, and I throw them all the time. But if I say I had to pick like two or three, my number one all time is the one that Hank Cherry won the Classic on, the Stain Reaction OB. That's definitely by far my favorite. And then like a Pro Blue, I actually throw Skeleton Tennessee, which is it's a Pro Blue with just a touch of chartreuse on the tail. And then like some type of flashing color, something chrome. Doesn't really matter. And then when it comes to like, probably it'd shock a lot of people, but probably my favorite way to catch them is fishing channel banks and points in the wintertime with like a little stand-up head like the Crocagator football head on the swamp bug. Now, little secret that there's going to be a couple people that are going to be mad at me for saying, Jim Dill, the beaver style tail on the swamp bug is the deal. That thing is nasty.
That big paddle tail?
Yeah, that thing is sweet.
Really? Okay.
They like that thing. Yeah, that's been around for a long time, and the cat's kind of been
grab
kept secret.
grab that. I think that's still in there. Some of the stuff that I've got is in the boat, but I think that's the actual swamp bug.
The junior or the senior?
No, the junior. The junior is where it's at.
So here's the senior. I mean, this is just going to be a blowed up version of the swamp bug, and he's talking about a different one. But if you guys, I mean, a lot of you guys are Lake of the Ozarks people that are on here, but that's a swamp bug. That's the senior. So the traditional size is quite a bit smaller, but
I can't. Yep, yeah, that's the one. And then the go-to there is like the green pumpkin candy or the one with the little blue in it.
Yeah, so
that's green pumpkin candy that I pulled out there.
So this bait, when I first saw that, I'm like, what in the heck is that? It's kind of like a helgamite with a big old fat nasty grub tail on there. A real unique, and these little legs, you don't really have to do much, and they kind of just wiggle like that in the water. And I've thrown it on a couple trips, and the fishing was tough, and I actually caught a couple fish on a shaky head with the smaller version, not the senior, but the regular one.
So that's what you're throwing then?
That little bitty one, just like that.
What's that called? It's got a different name to it.
That is a beaver bug.
Yep, the beaver bug. Yeah,
on a stand-up head.
Yep, little 1/4 ounce football head with the EWG hook in it. You throw that sucker at the bank, and I just you don't even move it with your rod. That's one of the biggest things. I'm just giving the juice out here. You throw that thing literally on the bank and just shake your slack all the way back. I mean, you're barely moving that thing. Just don't feel you never want the line to get tight. It's all slack, and it'll get tight when there's one on there. So that deal, and then say if there's some lay down trees or something on the bank, I'm just gonna go to a 3/8 ounce zapper jig with the lighter wire hook in the same color with a little rain crawl on it, and then you can pitch that in the trees. So, but like the swamp bug or the one with the paddle tail on it, the beaver bug, I'm only throwing that on like 10 or 12 pound, sometimes on a spinning rod.
Okay.
That's one of my all-time favorite ways to catch them. I absolutely love getting way back there in creeks where nobody's fishing in the wintertime and jerking on them. And you just catch a ridiculous amount of fish. There's so many fish live back there.
I bet. And I can see how like these little legs, if you're just shaking your slack line, I mean, I'm just holding it still and it's moving. So it wouldn't take much to get a little bit of movement, and you're just kind of keeping it in their face.
Don't lie. You've been drinking coffee all day.
Red Bulls, Monster Energy.
Yeah.
No, man. That's cool. That's good tips. So are you throwing what size head on that swamp bug? Like quarter. Okay. Quarter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Quarter on, 10 or 12 pound line and barely moving the thing, but you just catch, and you hardly any hook set. It's just, you feel that tension. They will pull the line tight. That's generally how I know I have them, and just kind of lean back on them. And one big thing is they're a little tough to get on the head sometimes. So I'll pre-rig and also throwing it on that super light line, I break some off. So I'll rig up if it's going to be real cold and I've got gloves on. I'll rig up like 6 or 8 of those, and so I can just retie them super easy without having to take my gloves off and try and screw one on the head. I do it at home, so that definitely helps.
Yeah, that's smart, man. It's
such a powerful bait. You wouldn't believe how powerful it is. And then that bigger one is more like, once those fish, that water starts creeping up around 50 and higher, pitching it at wood, and maybe where one's going to try and bed.
Do they make that beaver bug in a bigger version?
I don't believe so. I think it's just a smaller one. Yeah.
So talk about rod, like the rod and your setup you'd be using for shaky head fishing.
Shaky head fishing. So I'm using FX Custom rods. I've been with them for, I don't know, since 2018, and they're a great sponsor of mine. I believe in them full-heartedly. It's a great product, lifetime warranty, great components. Everything about them's great. I can't say enough about them. I mean, that's the only rod I own. That's all I use, and I have full faith in them. But as far as what I use I'll just go through each bait if that's okay.
That's awesome. Yeah, go right ahead.
So on the swamp bug and like the zapper jig for wintertime fishing, light line, I use their 7-1 medium heavy. It's a fast action rod, so it's like an 80-20 bend, and it's got enough tip that you're not pulling it away from those fish. And like I said, I'm not like super setting the hook or anything. I just lean back on them. And if I go real light line or I'm really wanting to finesse fish with them, I'll use like a 7-foot medium spinning rod, like a 10-pound leader to 8 or 10-pound fluorocarbon. And then that's generally the only rod I use for that type of fishing in the wintertime. That's a super versatile rod I use all year long, but that's the one I typically lean on for that. And then when it comes to jerkbait fishing, they've got a new rod out. It's a 6.6 medium. It's a little shorter than what I usually would prefer, but it's got the perfect action. I could not create a rod with a better action for jerkbait fishing. So I've got 3 rigged up right now with different variations of jerkbaits for tomorrow. I'm going to go lurk around a little bit, but it's a super soft rod, probably softer than what some people would think of for jerkbait fishing, but I like it for forward-facing sonar fishing, if that makes sense. Because when you're fishing without forward-facing sonar with a jerkbait, you're watching your line for the bite. If you're jerkbait fishing with forward-facing sonar, the only way you know they're on there is when you move the bait. Because as you're fishing that bait, you'll watch the fish come up and become one with your bait. Mm-hmm. But they still don't have it. So you have to keep moving it constantly when they're behind your bait like that. That's the only way you know you have a bite is the time you go to jerk it and it's tight. It's on there. So you want a rod that's got a lot of tip, a lot of softer action. When you make that move and he's got it, you need it to give a little bit, or else you're going to pull it away from him, if that makes sense, because you're twitching it. And that's a little harder than what I would typically set the hook if I knew one was on there. You know, if I watched one bite it with my line, I could have a stiffer rod and just kind of pull on them. But instead, when I'm watching them bite it on my screen, I'm twitching it, waiting to feel the weight. And so I like to have a little softer rod. That way it absorbs that twitch and I don't pull the hooks out. So that 6.6 medium's a pretty awesome rod for stickbait fishing, especially for live scoping or active target fishing. And then when it comes to A-rigging, last year, and is when I started using it, they've got a 7.7, now called a medium heavy. At the time of the Toyota, I was toting a 7.7 heavy, which was a little bit, I don't want to say off, but it's a little softer rod than a heavy. So what we did was we rebranded that as a medium heavy. It's a 7.7 medium heavy, still the same blank. And then we've came out with a stiffer rod that's a 7.7 heavy. And the way I usually explain it to people is if you're going to throw heavier heads like quarters or something like that on an A-rig, or you're just bomb casting it, you probably want to go with the stiffer one. When I'm using active target or forward-facing sonar, the 7.7 medium heavy is a little bit better because I'm just making short little casts, 40, 50, 60 feet, just lobbing it out there. So that's kind of the rundown on what I use this time of year. Really, 3 rods is all I use. I have a bunch of different, I've got quite a few of them, but that's kind of the deal there.
Yeah, man, it's nice to be able to keep it simple. That's one of the things I like about the winter is you can put all your topwater stuff away. You can put your punching stuff away, your frogs away. You can just kind of fine tune
3 or 4 rods.
Yeah, and just figure out how to catch fish on those baits. I mean, it's kind of nice.
I could really get away with 3. I probably run about 10, but it's all the same rods.
Yeah. I'm typically I'm kind of been getting into spoon and blade bait fishing. My buddy Ron, he's real good at offshore fishing, locating those deep fish, and he's kind of got me over the last couple of years throwing a spoon and a blade bait a little more in the winter. But prior to that, it was just kind of like I always got a big spinnerbait for fishing shallow, like a 1/2 ounce or 3/4 ounce spinnerbait with a size 6 to size 8 Colorado blade. Yeah, I like slow rolling that big spinnerbait around, then jerk bait and shaky head and a jig, kind of that's an A-rig too. But lakes we fish around here, we got one where you can put 5 hooks on the bait, but most of the lakes in Illinois, it's just 2 hooks. I mean, I live in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, but most of the lakes that we fish are over in Illinois. So you can only fish 2 hooks over there. So I don't even mess with an A-rig unless I'm going to the lakes that you can fish 5 hooks. So it's
like, and most of our tournaments don't allow it.
Yeah, most of our tournaments don't allow the
So-
A-rig, so it's a kind of a fun fishing thing. But yeah, it's nice to just keep it simple and go out and try to find the fish.
I'll be honest with you, I don't like throwing the A-rig.
Sometimes it's like only way you can get it. I'm not gonna say the only way, but it's a way. It's a good. Yeah,
it's a tool, but it's one of those that it's like throwing a drop shot. I don't like throwing a drop shot.
I throw it this time of the year a little bit.
Right.
I mean, I'll try to catch them on a jerk bait or a spoon or something. But there's sometimes when they're sitting in the middle of the water column,
and you need an
and
A-rig.
you can't get a jerk bait down to them, and you can't get the spoon up to them.
I get it 100%. I get it 100%.
Yeah, don't hate, man. Don't hate.
I don't like a drop shot either. But if I got to use it, I'll use it.
Right.
So I got all the A-rig stuff. Don't worry, I got thousands of dollars worth of A-rig stuff. Don't tell my wife. So, Bass Fishing. It's got a question.
Let me know what you think of the forward-facing sonar or the A-rig after you get forward-facing sonar.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Gonna change it.
I'm sure
it's going to change it.
I can't get enough of it.
See, I'm like you though. I'm a jerkbait guy.
I love jerkbait.
I'm a nut with a jerkbait. So,
yeah.
And that spoon game is.
See, but you're a summer.
I'm a summer spoon.
Guy,
you're
right?
a winter spoon. I haven't tried the winter spoon yet, so
it's the same thing.
Yeah,
basically, I mean, pretty much.
Bass fishing full. What's best, Lowrance or Garmin? That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
It's
They're
all
both
good right now. So, I'll be honest with you. The reason I went with Garmin is because I just wanted something for live scope, and Lowrance does not offer cost-effective product for that with a 10+ inch screen.
Well,
that was the only reason.
Yeah, it's 9 or 12.
Yep.
They're both really awesome. So if you're going to go, 12, and another thing is integrating with what electronics you have on the boat. I mean, if you've got Lowrance and you want to integrate everything, well, you definitely want to go Active Target. If you're running Garmin, then stay with Garmin or whatever. So, but they're both really, really good. Here's a comment. Maybe this will make sense to you. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. It's kind of like an insider question, I figured.
I suppose. So me, Brad, and Brock all were top 10 at the Toyota and all fish in similar areas. So at one point, me, Brad, and Brock were all 3 points in a row fishing. And all that was, they're two of my buddies that we fished Toyotas together, and BFLs, we all travel together and room together. So we all ended up the same spot, same time, all did well in the tournament. So I think that's what he's referencing there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Kevin says, Michael, do you use forward-facing sonar for bottom fish, say jigs or crankbaits, or is it mainly a suspended fish thing?
No, I definitely. What's up, Kevin? I use forward-facing sonar for bottom fish too. It's just you can't see them. Once you get the first bite, you can. Do I use it? I would say I'd have to refine that, I guess. A lot of the time, I'm still trying to get them suspended so I could use my forward-facing sonar, if that makes sense. So I may fish an area that the fish are on the bottom and try and, trick that first fish into coming up after my bait and firing the school up. I don't use it that much for jig fishing or, I do use it for fishing jigs, just not fish I can, or not if I'm not throwing at something, if you know what I mean. If I'm not throwing at something. So if I'm just going down the bank, dragging a jig or throwing a crankbait, no, I'm not looking for the fish. I'm still watching for structure, that type of deal, but I'm not trying to watch my bait or watch a fish bite my lure or anything like that. I'm just looking for somewhere to throw my bait on the next cast.
Yeah, so you're still using it to find brush and laydowns and stuff.
Yeah, brush or maybe a little piece of rock or something that I can pitch my jig at or throw my crankbait by. But I'm not trying to get watch a fish bite my lure like I am with suspended fish.
Well, and even at that, when you have that fish on the bottom and you catch that fish on the bottom, it also gives you a little bit of confidence that you know that there's more than one fish sitting on that brush pile, sitting on that offshore point. So.
Yeah,
especially if 5 of them follow it back.
We got a great stream going right here. A lot of activity in the comment section. I mean, I wrote down a bunch of questions, but I have not even had to look at this sheet because you guys out there are just asking a bunch of really good questions. So
bring it on.
Really enjoying this. Chad Davison has a question. This is a really good question. I think Chad's with Crocagator on the kayak side, if I remember right. Do you ever find yourself wasting time on fish that are hard to catch just because you can see them? I imagine that's something that you have to learn when to turn it on and when to turn it off.
Absolutely. I've gotten to where I won't throw at a fish. I'm probably screwing up by doing it, but I won't throw it at say, a specific fish or, a rock pile or something more than a couple times and have them follow my bait. If they follow my bait back to the boat and don't bite it, I'm going on. I'm not going to fool with them anymore. Just because you'll catch yourself wasting a lot of time and getting discouraged. If you're seeing fish, which that's just inevitable with forward-facing sonar, if I haven't fish follow it, because I would say throughout the day, maybe catch 25% maybe of the fish that follow my bait.
Really?
It's unbelievable how often you have fish follow your bait back to the boat. Unbelievable. Almost nearly every cast.
Huh. Now, will you make an adjustment? Okay, say you're in an area and you're seeing fish and they're 1 out of 10 is following an A rig. Will you try a jerk bait or will you try a swim bait, or you just kind of keep moving, looking for fish that are wanting to bite the A rig?
I generally will keep trucking, looking for, I think a lot of that's just a school that's not fired up or fish that aren't ready to feed. So either you got to time it right and be around fish that are ready to eat at the right time of day, or you need to run into fish that are feeding. So I generally will keep it moving and just keep doing what I'm doing and hope it happens. Now, if I start having fish not look at it at all and I know they're there, that's when I'm going to start making an adjustment. But if they'll follow it, they'll bite it.
Gotcha. Tom says the promoter sent out a notice that there is a mask mandate for the Let's Go Fishing show this weekend. So if you're going up there to that show, make sure you got your little buff or something. Let me scan through here for some more questions. Try to get caught up on all this. Yeah, Ron was saying that the tagging study in Mille Lacs supported the migrate, basically what we just talked about, how far field travel back to where it was caught. So I think that's pretty typical of fish. They'll kind of go until they find what they need, and that's kind of where they stay. Yeah, you were just talking about this. He was talking about how there's probably a ton of double-digit bass in Lake of the Ozarks that just never get caught.
I swear there are. There's got to be.
They got little short windows in the spring, and unless you can get out off the bank and have that forward-facing sonar to locate them, they just don't get messed with.
Well, even those fish, I think they probably spawn on the main lake and probably so deep that you've got no prayer seeing them. So,
how's the Camus doing? Mike wants to know.
Love it. Got the new one coming, so I'm just waiting to sell the old one and get the new one here at the house and go get it broke in with my new Lowrance's. Super excited. I couldn't be more excited. That's how I learned to catch fish offshore, was with Lowrance. That's what I had on the boat before my Camus. Then I decided to go back with them, something I'm super comfortable with. And nobody's going to convince me that there's better waypoint management or user interface than what Lowrance has.
I agree with that 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Yep.
What model Camus are you running?
The CX21. Yep, got the CX21 black and blue, just like the one I got now. Same color scheme. It's going to have 2 8-foot poles and 4 12-inch Lowrances, the new Ghost trolling motor, and should be pretty sweet.
Man, that's pimping, dude. That's nice.
Yeah.
You getting that through Boatworks?
Yes. Yep, Boatworks in Osage Beach. And honestly, man, it's a great riding boat. Great riding boat. One thing I did add to this boat, I had my Garmin trolling motor deploy on me at Grand in the Toyota going down the lake in some wind waves. Thankfully, no damage to it. And then June here, everybody knows Lake of the Ozarks is treacherous in the summertime. So fishing a tournament, had my trolling motor deploy on me in boat waves, and it broke the latch. So we installed the TH Marine deal that locks it to your deck. Yep. And man, that's just a game changer. I don't even notice the water being rough. That boat rides so good, and there's nothing rattle around in the front. And it takes these big waves great.
Yeah, that's cool. I've yet to actually ride in one. I've seen one. I think it was Brett Gervaux had one last year, and
Yeah.
I got in there and looked at it. It's nice, man. They're sharp looking
Yeah.
boat. Stephanie says, how do you use forward facing sonar with 2 in the boat? Stephanie, you kind of got to get, most of these bigger boats, they have a pretty good size front deck. And when I fished with Ron or some of the other guys that I fished with, I had the forward facing sonar. You can fit 2 guys up there. One's got to cast left and one's got to cast to the right, and just be mindful of where your other person is in the boat when you set that hook, so you don't knock them out of the boat or put a big dent in their forehead. But
it's good when you have a left-handed fisherman and a right-handed fisherman on the front deck. My college team partner was left-handed, I'm right-handed, so it worked out really, really well. So
here's a good question. It says, Michael, how do you keep your cool, or how did you keep your cool? Whatever he's referring to.
Oh, I don't know. There's no telling with this guy.
You're just cool in general, right?
I'm just cool as a cucumber, man.
There you go.
Cooler than the flip side of the pillow.
You think there are a lot of unpressured offshore bass in Lake of the Ozarks?
Not anymore. Not anymore. No, they're seeing plenty of pressure. No, I think there's fish that, like I said earlier, pelagic and just swim out there in the middle and aren't relating to anything. Those fish, yeah, they're super unpressured. If I could figure out a way to catch those, we'd be in business. But I think that there's a lot of fish that swim over 80 feet of water and, they never see lure.
Shane's giving you a shout out. He says he fished with you on Grand. You never used forward facing sonar and you still flat out caught the fish.
Sweet, man. I appreciate that. I fell on my face the next day, so.
It happens to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So in that Toyota series, I'll kind of swing back around and touch on that a little bit. You said you didn't have a lot of time to pre-fish, or I can't remember what you said about that.
Oh, the lake was frozen, man.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, everybody was on a level playing field there. It was 3 days. You had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and that was it.
So you were just going off of a little bit of back history and knowing where they might be, or what? So break it down more. Tournament morning, what'd you do, man?
So here's the deal with that. I had no boat. My champion that I fished was damaged, still is. I was waiting on my new Camus. Had no boat. Had already paid the entry fee for the Toyota.
Really?
No boat to fish out of. I'm calling my buddies. So my buddy Colin Baxter in Columbia lent me his brand new Phoenix. And so I hadn't fished, obviously, while the lake had been frozen. It had been like below zero for 3 weeks here. So I had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to fish in a boat that I'd never been in before with electronics that I'd never used. And I fished all spots I'd never fished before. Found everything in practice, kind of got onto a little something quick, thankfully. And I kind of ran with it. And I never threw at a rock, at a stick, at a bank that I had ever fished before the whole tournament.
Wow.
So everything I found was in that 3 days.
So you were truly fishing the moment.
100%.
It's a cliche term, but man, that's exactly what you were doing.
Yep.
So did you feel like you had enough areas? I mean, okay, so you kind of started figuring out what was going on. How did you're running a pattern, right? I mean, what were you doing?
Just fishing offshore stuff. I mean, I had a couple bank spots that I fished, but mainly offshore and nothing specific really. It was, some brush piles, some hard spots, some rock piles, some drops, just a little bit of everything. But the biggest thing was it was staging areas that those fish were wintering, getting ready to go spawn. And I think they were coming to me a lot. It got better every day, which doesn't really show in the weights because my biggest bag of the tournament was the first day, but I had a 621 or something like that. So that kind of boosted those numbers. But I just, I didn't know I was on that kind of fish. I had no idea. I thought I could catch 12 pounds a day. And there's some guys, like Roger and people that, mentors, I wouldn't say mentors, but peers that I look up to said 12 pounds a day will blow it out of the water. Like it was that tough, like tough.
Yeah, it was.
So I thought I could catch 12 a day. I knew there was a lot of fish following my bait. And after I caught a couple, I quit throwing. I quit throwing at that stuff. Or if I had one follow it, I'd wind it up and, move on. because I was just marking where those fish were relating to. So I really had no idea what I was on or what kind of quality I was on. And it truly got better every day. So like it took me all day long the first day to catch what I had. And I thought, oh my gosh, I did really good. Thought maybe I could catch 12 pounds the next day. I had no idea if I was going to catch 20. So I pull up the second day and I have 20 pounds in like an hour and a half. I'm like, oh my God. Okay.
That feels good.
Yeah. Something's going on here. You know what I mean? Like something's happening. And then the third day, I only needed like 15 pounds to pretty much lock it up and had 18 in like the first 20 minutes. Like,
wow.
It got stupid. I wish that the tournament would have kept going because it just was getting better every day.
Wow.
And a lot of that stuff was stuff I found during the tournament. Like, as the tournament went on, I was expanding on what I had. Or like, for instance, I got really lucky on one and pulled up to fish one brush pile and set the trolling motor down on top of another one where I saw it, marked it, went and fished the one that I pulled up to fish, spun around and fished the one I just marked and caught 2 4-pounders. So nice. It was some good fortune too.
So that second day when you had that weight early, did you just lay off the fish?
Yeah, I kind of went looking a little bit. Yeah. Once I had 20, I mean, there was, there's only so good you can do. So I knew I needed to keep looking and I knew I needed more. So
what do you do on day 3 sitting on 18 pounds? Do you continue to go after and try to upgrade, or do you?
So that's a pretty good story too. To catch that 18 pounds, I went right back to the pile that I marked on day 2 and caught those 2 big ones on, and I caught like a 5, a 4, and a 3 right off.
Dang, that's awesome.
Like ice in my guides, like ice is popping as I'm reeling fishing. Crazy. First thing in the morning. So I knew I needed 15 and I had like 18 and I had like a 2.5 pounder. And selfishly, I really wanted to catch 20 a third day in a row, like really bad.
Sure.
So I wanted my co-angler to win. We knew he needed like 7 pounds. And I really wanted to catch 20. So I was still fishing, but not really fishing super hard. And then at like 11, I caught another 4-pounder that gave me 20 pounds, and I put my rods in the box. And I just live scoped for him the rest of the day. So he caught a 5-pounder on his own that day, throw him behind the boat. And then we live scoped him like a 2.5, and he won by an ounce.
Oh wow, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, good for you.
That's a great boater.
Well, either I was going to go back or I was going to help him. That was pretty much the options. And I didn't, what kind of guy would I have been if I'd have drove back to the ramp and left him out to dry when he could have won a brand new boat. So right. I think I did what needed to be done, and it worked out. So.
That's karma right there. That's the good kind of karma.
That's the right thing to do.
It's exactly right.
100%. 100%.
What's the best mapping for Lake of the Ozarks?
They're all pretty good. Garmin, I would say, is the lesser of the 3.
Okay.
If I had to rank them, I would say Hummingbird's probably got Lowrance by a little bit. There's a little bit more detail. One thing that I like about what Hummingbird's is their colored palette, where you can depth shading or whatever. It's really accurate. So like on the Garmin's I had this year, the coloring would bleed through the lines on the contour, so it was a little misleading. I had to take that off on the Garmin's because it doesn't stay within the contour lines that it should, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The Lowrance is great. So if you look at like Navionics compared to Lake Master online, that's something I do quite a bit. There's not a whole lot of difference. Not a whole lot of difference.
Darius is not messing around, man. He says he's got a 16 on the front of the boat for active target and a 12 for mapping. That's
legit.
That's a lot of real estate to be looking at.
And that 16 is nice. That's what Ron's got on his boat. And, it's at the console. But, man, you can split that thing. Like, he'll have side scan running all the way across the bottom. And he'll have about 10 inches of it for a mapping and then a little down scan on the side. And, man, it is so
I wish I'd have done that. I should have got a 16. That'd have been sweet.
That's what he said if he would redo it. Like, he's got 2 12 stacked up front and a 16 at the console. He would have won a 16 up front and a 16 at the console.
I would still have to have 2 at the front. but maybe like a 10 for Matt.
Yeah.
I don't see splitting your screen with active target working very good, or any forward facing sonar. I want it to take the whole screen up.
Yeah, Hammy. You heard me talking about Ron. You throw a spoon much down there at Lake of the Ozarks in the winter?
I haven't thrown it here a whole lot. I actually rigged one up today, if I'm being completely honest with you. Definitely have done it at Table Rock. I saw some stuff out here that I thought I needed to go try it. So we'll see. Well, I'll get back with you after tomorrow.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's addicting, man.
It's going to blow 10 to 20 tomorrow, though. That's not super conducive for live scoping.
Yeah, it might help the spoon bite, though, if you still find those fish.
It's hard to stay on them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Let's see here. I was going to ask you, we got another question here, but I was going to ask you about back to that tournament. Did you primarily throw an A-rig or did you mix any other baits in?
I caught a limit on a stick bait every day. They just didn't make it to the weigh-in. I had some shallower stuff that I was catching a lot of fish off of, a lot of numbers. It was just good to get the day going every day. The third day, I never made a cast with a stick bait, but it just. And had the water not been clear where I was fishing, I could have utilized some of the, like the swamp bug or something. And maybe that's something I'll try and do this year is even if it's clear, I think that you can do it. You just got to stay a little further off of them. But mostly I was stick bait fishing and A-rig fishing, but there's definitely something to be said for one, getting away from it. It's more of a limit and quantity type deal, throwing like a swamp bug or a little jig at a channel swing or a point or something like that. That's definitely a good way to get some momentum going. Put a couple fish in the boat.
Oh yeah, man. It just feels good. You can relax. Here's a question from Doug at Auto Trieve. Guys out there, if you don't know about Auto Trieve, check them out. It's a great company. They're made locally. Doug's a great guy. And what the Auto Trieve is it's a retractable device that you can tie like your hound dog lure retriever on. And the actual retriever part is mounted underneath the deck of your boat. And then coming through the top of your boat is just it's like a little nipple and the rope comes out through it. And, you pull up your hound dog when you get hung up on the bottom, do your business and reel it back in and let go of it, or just set it down. And that rope just retracts back inside. It's below the deck of the boat. It's super handy. So check out Auto Trieve if you guys are looking for a legitimate lure retriever. He says, Michael, can you describe your approach to targeting a single suspended bass? Do you stick the bait right in their face or do you try to keep it above them?
First of all, that's pretty badass. I'll have to check those out.
You should, man. It works great, man. I installed it probably like 6 or 8 months ago, and dude, it saved me so much money. It works for like Ned rigs, shaky heads, A-rigs, crankbaits. I mean, you use it on everything. So I think you'd be happy with it.
Austin and I were just talking about a week ago. You could make a good plug knocker $500 and I'd still pay it. I mean, you get that back within 2 weeks?
Yeah, right. Well, and it retracts, so you don't have to reel in your rope if you've got it on a reel, or you don't have.
It's not tangled up around.
It's not in the way. It's not sliding all over the boat.
Yep, mine's always. I still haven't ordered one. I apologize, Doug. I need to order one, but mine bounces down the back of the boat, and then I lose it, or the button gets undone, and now I got line running out the back of the boat. It's just annoying. So
mine's just on an old rod and reel, like an old cutoff rod, right at.
That's what mine's on too, but it's in the way all the time.
It's right by your recessed foot pedal. Yep. It's just got a little half-inch hole that comes up, and it when you're in a rough run or whatever, it stays right there. It doesn't slide all over the boat.
Does the plug knocker have a chain on it, or is it just the?
You can put whatever plug knocker you want on it.
Okay. Yeah, the one with the chain's legit.
Yeah, you can put whatever you want on there. So the actual Auto Trieve is just the retrievable device. It's got 300-pound trout line on it, and then you've got a little ring that you can. It basically just keeps it from retracting down in there. And whenever you get your lure retriever, you just tie it on there. So
that's got to save an insane amount of time.
It's pretty sweet. It's super legit.
So to answer his question, 95% of the time, if I'm throwing at a single fish, or even I want them to come up to it. They want to come up to it. They want to come up to it for sure. Very, very rarely, like say a stick bait. Like if I throw a stick bait out there and it gets below the fish, they don't turn and go down on it that much. They want to feed up. It's just like a natural instinct. So say if I've got a fish that I see is like 4 or 5 feet under the water, which is not uncommon, I'm going to try and not throw it super far past it. And I'm going to jerk my bait like this up. I'll keep my rod tip up so it still goes over that fish's head. That's the best thing I can do to get them to bite. And then I always try and get it as close to the fish as I can as far as like left to right goes. You don't necessarily want, your bait to get within inches of the fish because sometimes it'll scare them. They may want to go up 4 or 5 feet to eat it, but I definitely am throwing it right at the fish on the screen and trying to get them to come up to eat it.
Okay. Here's another good question. Matt says, how about blades on the A-rig? He'd rather throw a jerkbait, of course. But what's your thoughts on blades versus not blades?
Most of the time I throw blades, unless it's like table rock and I can see 20 foot and it's super cloudy or something. If you get sun, definitely want to go with the blades. But, I mean, on Lake of the Ozarks, I'd say 90% of the time at least I'm throwing blades.
I was fishing with Pete Winters in a BFL
at Table Rock.
At Table Rock, I drew him. I was a co-angler, and it wasn't last year; it was the year before. And he was throwing the A-rig. He was using forward-facing sonar and targeting those spotted bass and standing timber out pretty deep. And he had 2 rigs on the boat. He had one with blades, one without.
Yeah.
And the day before, they were hitting the one with blades. Same conditions. No cloud cover. It was just a bright sunny day, pretty slick, a little bit of boat traffic, so there was some wave action. But the day before, he was catching them on blades, and they wouldn't touch the blades, and he had to throw the A-rig without the blades. And he was throwing. This is another question I was going to ask you. He was throwing braid on his A-rig, and it was old faded braid. It was white. It was like they had no green color to it, and he was still catching them on that. I was like, that blew me away. In Table Rock.
Hold on, let me see that A-rig.
In Table Rock.
Let me see that A-rig. You got to think, though. All that.
I know.
Right there leading up to what they're getting ready to eat. And they're coming up from behind it. They're not.
Well, sometimes you're bringing that line over. If you cast over the fish, they're seeing that line sometimes.
Yeah, but you got to think, though. Are they picking out that line or are they looking at this?
I guess it depends on how close the bait lands.
Because if I ran a line out there in front of you and I had a stake over there, what are you looking at?
Yeah, the stake, of course.
Yeah, you don't even notice that line. Right. It's got a hook in it.
Right. So Michael, what's your thoughts on braid versus fluorocarbon?
I don't think it makes that big of a difference. Okay. I think once they get that bait in their eyes, they zone in. They lock in on that bait. I don't think that they see it. I choose to throw it on fluorocarbon because it's more pleasurable to throw all day. I despise throwing braid. I hate throwing braid. I throw it on a spinning rod and top water and stuff, but if I can get away from throwing braid, I'm going to throw fluorocarbon. And so it's just easier for me to cast. It's more manageable, and I like the way it feels. I like casting it. I like setting the hook. I like having that little bit of stretch, and that's another reason why I throw the softer rod. I feel like they get it a little bit better. So I choose fluorocarbon, but I really don't think it makes any difference. You're not going to get less bites because you're throwing it on braid.
Yeah. I can agree with that. That braid's like, it's just more rigid. It's hard. Like when you set that hook, it's more solid and
I don't like that instant contact.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like the delay that you get with fluorocarbon.
I've been throwing it on braid, but it's only because I've been kind of lazy, and I just took the reel off my frog rod and put it on my A-rig rod. And
it's all personal preference. It's all what you like. I don't like fishing with braid. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't cast. It doesn't feel good when you cast it. Half the time it tries to rip the rod out of my hand because I'm not a very good caster. So
Christian's giving you another shout out. He says, ask Mike about jerkbait clinic he put on the Mississippi River Regional in 2019. We didn't catch any big ones, but man, did we learn a lot that day. That sucker's caught some fish. Holy cow. Is
demolished.
Yeah. They even ate the bill off of that sucker.
Yeah. that broke actually. So I tied this bait on when we fished together. I had a little rock pile that I was catching smallmouth off of. Nothing big. Didn't do good at all. I finished like 80th in the tournament, but I caught the snot out of them on this bait. And I don't think I cut this off for like 14 months or something like that.
That was your lucky bait.
Oh, yeah. And so at the Toyota Championship at Pickwick this year, I told Brad Brock and Austin that I felt like I was going to break this. Broke it the next day on the bottom. Didn't even hit anything with it. Just broke it on the bottom.
It was just starting to get broke in too. You know, you get that custom paint job on there.
So confident in this thing.
Yeah, nobody has that color pattern.
Not that one. Hank Cherry, baby. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, here's a co-angler type question. Since you use the forward-facing sonar a lot, do a lot of your co-anglers struggle when fishing with you?
Well, the Toyota, for example, my co-angler on the last day won. My co-angler on the first day was in the top 10. And my co-angler on the third day, I know he cut a check. I don't know exactly how high he finished, but they all caught fish. I think that, if your guy's around fish, you're around fish.
Yep.
You may not be thrown in the brush pile, but a lot of that's mental. Guys let it get in their head for sure because they're, somebody in front of them's catching a lot more fish and they're throwing it at a specific target. But you got to think, if I'm going down the bank and I've got a co-angler in my boat, say it's the fall and I'm fishing docks, it's part of my job to play defense. Now, I might not nose you out, but I'm going to pick stuff apart before you get to it. If I'm up in the front of the boat throwing at one object, there's 350 degrees of untouched water around you. If I'm going down the bank, I'm fishing everything first. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
100%.
That was the route that I was going to go with that question. Was you're target fishing when you're honed in on your forward facing. You're not looking at the brush pile that's over here.
It's tunnel vision.
Yeah.
So you've got all this just unmolested prime water. They may not be as many fish. Like you may not catch as many as me, but the fish you're around are probably going to bite. And it's fish that aren't seeing lures. They're still there. They want to be in that area for a reason, and they're not all on a rock or on a stick or on a foundation or on a drop down. That every tournament I've fished that was a forward-facing sonar event, my co-anglers have done good. But I've seen even tournament partners get spun out because they're not catching any, and the guy in the front is. It's just you got to have that mindset that you may not catch as many fish, but you're around them and you've got a lot of untouched water.
I would much rather, as a co-angler, be in a boat with somebody that is fishing specific targets off the bank slower than somebody that's covering water really fast, shallow. That's the hardest person to fish behind, is somebody that's moving really fast.
Yeah.
And you're fishing tight and shallow.
Right.
It's just, sometimes it's hard to present a bait properly.
It just depends. As a co-angler, you just got to understand you're not fishing for the same fish that Michael in the front of the boat is fishing for. You should be targeting a different fish with a different bait and a different water depth.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. But I think it's, if you can get in your own little world back there, for sure,
and
just focus on what you're seeing, you're going to do better as a co-angler. That's something I'm working.
That's how the best co-anglers fish. That's how the best co's do good, for sure.
Andrew says we do not talk about the beaver bug ever.
He's the one that let the cat out of the bag. He's the one that put it on Facebook.
Austin says Jim Dill called John Wick on you, Mike.
He might have.
Are we talking about this right here?
Yeah, it is good.
That one, beaver bug. Joey's got something here.
She says there's a new squid scent coming out on the Crocagator soft plastics.
Pretty excited about that. Pretty excited.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in scent.
Yeah, that's why they eat Kitech so good. They get behind it, and that's just wagging in their face. I'm big on that, so that's gonna be a big deal. That's gonna be a big deal.
Yeah, especially in the wintertime, scent is.
And
it doesn't hurt.
And there's nobody else doing that. There's nobody else that's doing that. They may have crawfish or whatever, but I think there's something to be said for foreign objects. I've worked in a tackle shop my whole life, and I can promise you that skipjack works better for catching catfish than shad do in our lake. And that's because we don't have skipjack.
Right.
It's a foreign smell. It attracts them.
Well, I mean, just think about garlic.
Yeah.
They're not eating garlic bread and pasta down at the bottom of the lake. So,
Chris wants to know, is there a weekly fishing club tournament on Cedar for y'all that you fish regularly? So Cedar's a local lake here. There's a little jackpot derbies going on every other week over there at Cedar. They didn't have the one yesterday because the guy that was putting it on said he was out of town, but I think it had something to do with the high only being 26 degrees. So it's probably smart.
30.
And blowing 30. I don't think anybody would have showed up. He probably would have been fishing for his own money. But yeah, every other week over there at Cedar, there's a derby going on. And then starting in May, I think USA Bassin starts putting on tournaments. And then they do like that's like a summer series. It might not be May. It might be. Yeah, I think the last week in May, they start doing
May.
The
they
series.
do every other week. One's an Angler's Choice or USA Bassin, and one's an Open. And then they got the USA Bassin, which is usually the Southern Illinois division, all summer long into the fall.
Angler's Choice.
Angler's Choice has a summer division. And then USA Bassin usually has a fall division as well. So ample opportunity.
There's several bass clubs over there too.
Yeah.
There's the Kincaid. No, not Kincaid. Yeah, the Kincaid Bass Club.
Little
And then
Egypt
there's a
Bass
Little
Club.
Egypt Bass Club over there in Illinois. They all fish all those lakes over there. Here locally, there's in the Cape Girardeau area, there's a 9.9 Bass Club. They fish all those lakes over there. So there's a lot of opportunities to fish those lakes over there. Bruce, thanks. Appreciate that.
Much appreciation.
Much appreciated. Tyler says he has the A-rig rod that you're talking about. The FX Custom Rods, where's that made, or where's that located at? Where's their headquarters at?
I believe out of Georgia. I think they're out of Georgia. So
I was looking after you said that because I hadn't heard of them a lot, and decently priced rods and a lifetime warranty. So
yeah. We've got them at Fitz Fishing too at Lake of the Ozarks. And then Tombstone, Adam at Tombstone and Columbia's got them. And then they're super quick to ship online too. So
yeah, it doesn't look like a lot of frills, just kind of a pretty clean lineup of rods. And
the guy's a longtime rod builder that just kind of went, nationwide. So they're a little bit bigger in the South. We're trying to get them going up here. We've been using them. Austin and I have been using them for 3 or 4 years now. And that's a super high quality blanket. It's a real crisp rod. Which is important to me. The only way I know to describe a rod is crisp. I can pick up a lot of high end rods even that just don't have that crispy feeling. So it's a super sensitive rod. Great components, real plain and simple, easy to look at, and they've got a lot of different options as far as blended rods for crankbait fishing and all graphite rods, and they've got swim bait rods and all the way down to super finessey rods. And like you said, lifetime warranty. And another thing that they don't advertise, but I know for a fact it's true, is with a reel on it, those rods will float in the lake horizontally, completely across the water, which is, for a lot of people is pretty important. That lake goes in the lake, it's going to float.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I was reading, and I'm reading really quickly. No questions asked, lifetime warranty.
Yeah, there's a replacement fee just like there is on any rod company, even the best out there. It's like $60 plus shipping or something, but for a $200 rod, that's a pretty good deal. You could take it outside and break it over your knee. So, yeah,
I'm going to check them out, man. I'm going to check them out for sure. They're new to me, but I'm looking to kind of replace a few rods here and there. So I'll give them a look.
Yeah.
Chris, Cedar Lake, you're only allowed to fish 2 hooks on your A-rig, and that's most of the lakes over there in Illinois. So it's 3 in Missouri, 3 in Kentucky, and 2 in Illinois. And like we said earlier in the stream, there's a few lakes over there: Kincaid, Lake of Egypt, I believe Wren, and there are 2 other lakes over there that you can fish all 5 hooks on your A-rig. But you'll just have to get on the IDNR website and just do a little bit of research and find out, which lakes you can fish 5. But across the board statewide, the regulations are two hooks. Let's see here.
I agree, Mike. That jerkbait bite is fun.
Yeah, we're getting through a lot of these questions. Do you run the same baits on your A rig, or do you mix up colors and sizes and stuff?
All the same for me.
All the same weight heads, or do you?
All the same weight heads. Yeah.
Okay.
Same weight head, same length, same size, same color.
What about storing your A rigs? Do you have a good storage box for A rigs?
Yeah, I use a 3700 deep standard. I don't use the waterproof box on my A rig box. Use the waterproof on about everything else, but I can get a lot more in the regular. The big deal for me using those is little gear ties. You can get them at like Bass Pro or order them online. They're about 3 inches long, maybe 4 inches long. They make all different sizes, but the shorter one's the best. And it's just a soft, malleable little piece of it's like a zip tie that you can open up and close. So I wrap that around the baits or right above the bait on the A-rig. And I swear there's probably 40, if not more A-rigs in that 3700 deep with baits.
Impressive.
Yeah, there's probably 15 or so with baits and then a bunch that are just the A-rig themselves. So you can put a ton of A-rigs in a box with those.
Good tip.
Yeah.
JD, shallow, muddy, cold water. How do you catch the biggest bag in those conditions?
Shallow, muddy, cold water.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with probably the jig, Crocagator jig, black and blue, something. I'm gonna go 3/8 and a piece of plastic that's got a lot of body to it. Not a lot of movement, but a lot of body. Something that's gonna let that bait fall real slow and natural. I'm gonna find a channel swing in the back of a creek, and I'm gonna pick that thing apart. Flip it all the way to the bank, drag it in. Don't move it a whole lot, and just let that thing flow.
Yep. I'm a big fan of the big spinner bait.
Yeah, you can go big blade too. Big blade, yeah.
Yeah,
like
once that water's up
in 1 ounce and a number 6 white chartreuse. Yeah.
That's been good to me. And they'll still bite the jerkbait in that fairly muddy water, something gaudy like a red jerkbait.
Rockatora, Megabass, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they would, but they sure do.
Viper Tiger, if you can find it. The new Berkeley Stunna's got the Viper Tiger color for $15, and you can go buy them at the store right now. So Fitz has them. Yeah,
I need to go pick some of those up. I've been throwing that Stunner around. What do you think about it so far?
I've got about 8 of them. I haven't thrown one yet, but I'm just impressed with the shape, and it's a lot different than the 110. The weight transfer is a single ball instead of 2, and then it's just a one weight right here. So pretty cool little bait. I'm excited to try it. And then it's like super squared off on the bottom side right here. So I think it's going to have a little bit more roll on when you twitch it. Should be a pretty cool bait. And they've got great colors they're all colors that people have been looking for years and years and years in Megabass that they won't remake. So that's another nice feature.
Yeah, I think you'll like them. They're like a slow sink too, really slow sink. I've thrown them around a little bit, and I like the regular one, the 112. I don't like the plus one that much for whatever reason. It doesn't get down like it's supposed to. But I was talking to my buddy Mike Russell, and he said that jerkbait's kind of made for deflective purposes. The 110 plus one, it's made to deflect off stuff. So just 2 different models, but they're pretty good. I've been impressed with them so far. They did, like you said, they got good colors, and I like the slow sink concept. You got a buyer for your rig yet?
I don't. So if you know somebody, let me know.
Okay, I will. So I'm just gonna ask you real quick. We're just about caught up on questions. You got any Sasquatch stories that you've heard? Is there any rumblings there in the hills of the Ozarks, or you got a good Sasquatch story?
Seen a few tracks laying around. You never know what you might find out there.
Yeah,
in the back of those creeks, it gets a little hairy.
You never know.
Do the Hendersons live back there with the Harrys?
Harry and the Hendersons. That's an all-time classic. All-time classic.
Yeah, that would just freak me out, man. Just driving down the road, and
my wife and I were talking about that on the way back from Springfield and Branson this past week. we had mentioned about on the night tournaments over at Cedar, there's a big point that everybody comes in the boat ramp and just getting a silhouette and putting it on that boat ramp with like 2 red glowing eyes and letting it sit out there and listen to the boat ramp chatter when they got back in would be absolutely insane.
All right, you're in charge of these numbers.
All right.
They're coming in fast. I think I got them.
All right.
And this is something we've been having a little bit of an issue. Our stream, what we're seeing, our feed is different than your feed. So if we're going down our feed, and the first time we see that number, that's the winner.
We make final decision.
Yeah, we make the final decision. That's right.
He's laying the gavel down.
Do I get to win this giveaway?
If you get the right, I mean, you already forgot the number, so if you can remember your number, then yeah.
Coming in hot and heavy. So what do you got coming up as far as tournaments? You said you fished the Bass and Bob series through the winter.
Yeah, so we got Bass and Bob this weekend. So no A-rig tournament. The best around here show up for that one. That's always a good one. They got a Angler of the Year trophy that's pretty sought after, real hard to win. So we're gunning for that one. We had a bad tournament in the first one, but you get to drop one. So it's 5 tournaments, get to drop your worst one. So we used that and had 15 something in the second one. So we need to snatch them up pretty good. And then fishing the Randy Conlon Polar Bear series. That's a pretty cool one that Randy's putting on. I think they just moved it to the 22nd, maybe something like that. That's an A-rig allowed tournament. And I believe team of the year, and that one gets to go to the Bassmaster Team Championship. So I think we're leading that one. Had 17 in the first 2. And then after that, it's just the Toyota 1st through the 3rd of March. So same timeline as last year. Hoping maybe we can make it happen again.
That'd be awesome, man. I hope it works out for you. Are you fishing all 3 of those in that division?
Yeah.
Well, that's Grand, and is it Grand?
Got Grand at the end of April, so maybe a little spawn tournament, maybe some pre-spawn. Pretty excited about that one. I vibe decent with Grand. I usually have one good day followed by a bad day, or vice versa. Maybe put together the whole derby this time, and then the last Toyota is Truman in September. A little bit.
Truman, really?
A little weary about that one, but we'll see how it goes. And then the championships at Guntersville in November, first weekend in November. So be a cool
good one at Guntersville.
Yeah, never been.
Brush up on your frog skills.
Yeah, need to pack them. I'm a tackle head all the way to the bone, so I got plenty to throw, even though we don't have any grass here.
Yeah, we got plenty. We like the grass around here. That's one nice thing about Illinois is we have plenty of grass.
Southern Illinois, though.
Southern Illinois. That's right. Northern Illinois is rock, right?
Not northern or central Illinois, but southern Illinois.
I fished a college tournament at what is the name? Carlisle. Been there twice.
Carlisle.
Don't care to go back.
No.
Ooh, that's a bad one.
There's a lot of lakes in Illinois that are super tough. Shelbyville. There's a bunch of them up there. You get down in Southern Illinois, and the lakes get quite a bit better. We got it pretty good down in this area.
I should have texted one of my buddies the number or something.
A little insider trading. Yeah, I've been accused of that. There's Stephanie won 4 out of 6 there for a while, and
no doubt
accusing me of sending her a text or something.
Well, it's like Phil. You were going fishing with him the next day, and
he won.
He won that night. So.
Yeah, that probably turned a few heads. We still don't have a winner. That's amazing. You picked a good number. Sometimes people get it within the first 30 seconds. And there went the live chat. We'll get back on it for a few minutes here. I skipped over a bunch of questions. So if I didn't answer
really close.
If I didn't answer a question that you had for Michael, or not answer, but if I didn't shoot the question his way, go ahead and hit him up. Are you cool for staying on for another 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes?
I'm good.
Okay, cool, man. Yeah, this is really
who are you fishing with in those
really informational.
Those tournaments, those team tournaments this winter?
Austin Culbertson. He's one of my best friends, and
I saw him on here.
He hollered at me earlier, but yeah, he's my best friend. We fish we fish quite a bit together. He's got a new Boatworks boat coming too. He's going Skeeter, but he won the wild card last year. Was it last year? 2019 or 2020, I think. He won the wild card.
Is that on Kentucky Lake?
No, it's here. It's Lake of the Ozarks.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Skeeter, man. Yeah. That's what Fitzpatrick runs.
Not anymore.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's running Ranger this year.
Okay.
Yep. Got that new Ranger R or whatever it is. It's pretty cool looking.
I haven't seen it.
I think all the new boats are good. I mean,
yeah.
I have not been in a Camus. I really like Phoenix.
No winner yet.
No.
How many numbers were they off? What's the closest one? How many?
Oh,
numbers?
we've had one above it and one below it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And we've had some of them that are like 100 off.
Huh.
Matter of time.
Oh yeah, somebody will get it. I'm excited to go tomorrow. I know. So we were out fooling around the other day, and Austin, boom,
We got a winner.
Woo!
I think he's a second time winner.
Yeah,
isn't
that's a second or third.
Nice.
All right, you guys are out there.
So Andy, send me your contact shipping information. I know I had it at one time, but send it my way and I will forward it to Joey and she will get the Crocagator package out to you pretty soon. I know last time we did this when we had Weesey on here,
really?
she got it out pretty quick. So a lot of good stuff coming your way. Probably gonna have some Weesey jigs, some Zapper jigs in there. You know, she might even throw in.
I think we got some
Headbanger,
X bites in there. Hopefully, that's my baby. I love that thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool products from Crocagator. I like the tubes too. You know, I throw a tube a lot, and it's hard to find a good tube.
You put that gator lock head with the tube. That's a skipping machine.
Yeah, I bet.
Little black neon tube up there around the 80-mile marker.
Dirty water.
We were like 7 minutes behind on comments.
Holy moly! Yeah, they're below. It blew up. So you got any?
Don't say Sasquatch stories. We're not doing another
game. We don't say that word. We say it once,
one time,
and that's it. Yeah. Anybody out there that had a question out there that we didn't get to, go ahead and throw it back in the comments, and we'll answer a few more questions here real quick. I saw somebody asked. This is kind of I don't know. You may not want to touch on this, but any kind of bad co-angler stories, good co-angler stories, any of that kind of stuff?
I can't really think of any bad co-angler stories, to be honest.
I can think of at least one good one, though, right?
Oh, I do have one good co-angler story. I don't know if it's a good one, but
didn't you get a guy to win?
Yeah, my guy won the last day of the Toyota, and then let's see, maybe 3 years ago, BFL Lake of the Ozarks. It's March, super tough bite. I'd been catching them on a little red flat-sided crankbait in the glaze. Real muddy water, like real muddy. I'm talking boats a foot off the bank. Like I can touch the bank with my rod. That's how I've been catching all my fish. We go to take off that morning. I got an older guy. He asked me to put the seat in the boat. So we got a seat. I go to a really well-known, like super community hole spot. I was like boat 75. And I was like boat 75. I pull into this super, super well-known community hole in the glaze. And I make about, first of all, let's set the scene. Marcus starts on the inside. I start on the mouth. So he goes all the way back. I start on the mouth. We're fishing towards each other. And I fish maybe 10 minutes. And my co-angler goes to lean back on the seat. He's like 70-some-year-old guy. Falls over the seat, head first into the water.
Holy cow.
Completely submerged in 40-some-degree water in March.
Oh, my.
And he's the big guy. So, thankfully, we were close to the bank. So I get a hold of him, get him up on the holding onto the boat. I trolling motor all the way to the bank to where he can stand up. I pull him into the boat. Get this guy pulled into the boat. He's probably 250 pounds, maybe more than that. Like 6'2", something, big guy in his 70s. Falls completely head first, all the clothes on in the water, fully submerged. Marcus comes over there. He's like, "What can I do to help? Is there anything I can do?" He gives him his spare rain suit. Marcus gives the guy a spare rain suit so he has like dry clothes to get back to the ramp. I get back to the ramp. I call Alan Gray, our tournament director, awesome guy.
Yeah.
He's at the Missouri Invitational every year. He's awesome. So I tell Alan, I'm like, my guy fell in the water. We need to get him some dry clothes. So the co-angler goes to get clothes out of his boater's truck. So the guy he's traveling with is a boater. Truck's locked. The guy's wallet is in the truck. So he has no wallet. The boater is in the Niangua. So he has no clothes, can't get to his dry clothes, no wallet. I put the boat on the trailer, drive him to Walmart in the middle of the tournament, buy him a whole set of clothes, shoes, everything, like the whole 9 yards. Drive back to the lake, put the boat back in the water, and then try and go fishing. So to top that off, this is the worst part. So I'm a little frustrated, but it is what it is. The guy fell in. I'm just trying to help the guy. I idle out of PB2, and there's a yellow sign on both sides of the creek. Okay, that's the off limits. You can't fish inside that yellow sign. So I idle to that, shut it off, put the trolling motor down, and start fishing towards Lazy Days, if anybody knows where that is. So if you come out of PB2, I go right, and I'm fishing down that bank, and there's a boat on the other side of the creek. And he fires his motor up and like fast idles over to me, sets his motor down, and tells me I'm cheating because I was fishing inside the signs. Starts chewing me out, and then like fires it up, stands it on pad, and runs off. And
had no idea what you had just done.
I'm just completely spun out at this point, trying to scramble, and I end up zeroing. Only time I've ever zeroed in a tournament in my life. Couldn't put one on the boat. But yeah, that's a pretty crazy co-angler story.
Man, you did the right thing. You saved that guy's life. I mean,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's amazing, man.
Just thankfully we weren't offshore or had a long run back to the boat ramp. I'm like half a mile. So
that's still a cold half a mile.
Good God, yeah.
It was raining and 40. I mean, it's like 40 outside and 40-some degree water temperature. I mean, that's a bad deal. Could have been real bad. And shout out to Marcus. I mean, giving the dude his rain suit.
Exactly. I was just getting ready to say that. Yeah. That was that little bit of buffer from where you're at to back to the truck.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, that's scary, man. It's so scary. You know, a lot of guys don't wear their life jacket.
That is not what I.
Oh yeah, don't hit that. That's that.
Oh, that's another part of the story. Is let's see. Austin threw me off. Alan says, this is just the craziest thing. I've never heard anybody say this. Alan Gray, the tournament director, that morning at takeoff says it's really cold. It's raining. Everybody, if you can, make sure and wear your life jacket all day. That's what Alan said. So we pull up. The guy has his life jacket on the back of the boat and is fishing with his life jacket on. I swear I can't make this story up. He takes his life jacket off and goes, I know Alan said we need to be wearing these life jackets, but I just can't do it. Fell in like 10 seconds later. Swear.
Oh, my.
Just the craziest thing. Thankfully, he was okay. No injuries. Didn't hit his head or anything. And, he fished the rest of the day.
Alan Gray, man. Talk about high energy.
Dude.
He did a couple of hours over at Kentucky Lake, and holy cow.
Yeah, man.
We're losing him next year. He's going into a different division.
That's what I heard. That's a bummer, man.
Yeah, we lost Mark McQuay and Alan. Bad deal.
God. Shout out to Crockett Gator. You guys,
dude,
a lot of you people on here are familiar with Crockett Gator, but if you're not familiar with Crockett Gator, go check out their website. Support them. These live streams are about supporting the companies that are supporting the anglers that we have on here, and that's one of them. Crockett Gator has been a staple in the Ozarks area for years and years. Jim and Denise Still, the former owners, they're great in the community. Joey just purchased the company not too long ago. She's really putting in the time and doing the right stuff to promote and make the company better. So have a look at them. Go to their website. They got a lot of unique baits. It's all really quality stuff. It's tournament proven, tournament tested.
Stuff that works across the country too, not just
that's
here.
Right. That's right.
Stuff you can take anywhere and catch a 10-pounder up north, or you can catch a 7-pound smallie, or a 10-pound largemouth down south, or a 7-pound smallie up north.
I thought he had a big secret there about a big smallmouth.
10-pound smallmouth, yeah.
I wish.
No, and the unique things too, like the little swamp bug. That's just that's a really unique little bait. You know, it's not a run of the mill.
Absolutely.
I love the zapper jig.
That zapper jig's awesome, and there's just so much you can do with it. There's so many color variations, and we got the flat rubber coming back. So we, there for a while we were having some skirting trouble and had to go to the round rubber skirt, and we're getting back to the flat rubber. So I'm super excited about that. Got those natural colors, and there's just so much you can do with it. Like right now, you can cut that skirt and do a little finesse cut on it, and go with the lighter wire hook and pitch that thing up on the bank, light line, soft rod, or, you can go fast forward to April or May and go 1/2 ounce giant stout hook on it and a big flipping stick, black and blue, and, yank on it. So,
that zapper comes in 2 models, right?
Yeah.
The zapper jig and the zapper HD.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now I'm just going to go with the lighter wire hook, and then later on, bigger line, bigger hook. I'm going to go with the heavier hook. So.
Right. Right. And Michael's talking about, trimming that skirt down on a finesse jig. You don't have to buy an actual finesse jig. You can buy a full skirt, and your band is got skirt material on both sides. You can gather the back part of that, hang this front part down, trim it right there. Yep. You got a finesse jig.
Cut that weed guard down real short, and you're good to go.
Exactly.
The ring craw on it. That ring craw is an awesome little trailer, super realistic, and go to town. That's something I'm gonna play with tomorrow. We're playing around with ideas on part of the lake, but it's going to be so cold. I think we're only going to get one day before this weekend. I'm going to go in an area that I know real well, and I think we may be able to, forward facing sonar some fish, live scope some fish, but that's a tough technique to rely on in a tournament, especially that you can't throw an Alabama rig. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go try and hunt out some of those fish that are wadded up a little bit in those creeks and points and stuff, and pitch that little swamp bug around and see if I can't come across some limit getters. Something that I can go out and confidently know I can go catch a bunch of fish. If I can do that, find 3-4 spots that are holding a lot of fish, I'm going to be a lot more confident later in the day going and fishing for those bigger ones that are relating to single pieces of brush or rock or something.
Yeah. Get you 12 or so pounds in the boat, and then you can just go head hunting after that.
And if I can't find that pattern in this area of the lake, I'm going to run up the lake where I know I can do it. And that's all I'll do all day. I'll fish those channel banks with, that little jig and the little swamp bug, and we'll go to town, hope for 20.
Dave wants to know anybody on here that's fished Newton Lake, water temp. Anybody that's got any information on Newton Lake, greatly appreciated. Thanks, Kevin. Kevin says outstanding show. It's been really fun. Andy says he always tries to carry a bag of dry clothes with him. That's a really good idea, man. It's a really good idea. I usually carry a coat, or I always have my rain suit. But if you fall in with your rain suit, you're gonna have to have something else in the truck. But I always throw like a spare coat or a sleeping bag if you got room, just something you can bundle up.
I always try to keep a whole mess of extra clothes in the wintertime at least.
Marfell, you've got enough stuff for like 7 people. Mike, he stuffs his vehicle full.
Is he still running that like Suburban?
No, he got rid of the Suburban. I think he's got a Tundra. I got to be fair about it. He has downsized a lot, but there were times when we'd go down to Lake of the Ozarks or Table Rock, and I couldn't hardly fit my stuff in the back of his Suburban. He had everything you could possibly need. So yeah, he's definitely got spare clothes.
Does he still room with the dog?
No. With the dog?
Yeah, doesn't his dog go with him everywhere?
No. His Doberman, he's got a Doberman, stays at the house.
Okay.
Unless you're calling me a dog.
No, not you. That was his watchdog.
Another great Monday night show. Appreciate that. Good turnout tonight, Michael. It's great having you on here. Man, a lot of good information, a lot of good juice. I appreciate you sharing this stuff. A lot of people kind of tight-lipped about stuff. You know, they don't want to let all this out. I feel like you really have opened up and shared a lot of good stuff.
Try to be. I enjoy doing it. So
yeah, it's fun. It's good. It's good to get to know you, and I'll probably see you down there. I'm going to be fishing the Ozark division of the BFLs again, and I might jump in the first Toyota series. I'm not sure yet, but it's a possibility. So
I would say it probably won't be as tough as it was last year.
I mean, I don't know. I never say never, but I hope that hope it doesn't freeze up. I mean, surely it's not going to freeze up again. You just never know. I thought we were going to have like 50 and 60 degree days all the way through winter.
And then April's going to freeze up.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a lot of love for Crocker Gator here.
For sure.
Yeah, go check out the products. It's great of them to pitch in. And Andy, send me your information again.
Here we go. Newton, Friday, 66 on hot, 52 on cold.
Newton's a power plant lake up there in kind of central Illinois. It's land of the giants. It's got some really big, it's like 3.5 hour drive, maybe further than that.
We've talked about that. We need to make that like a camping trip up there this spring and get like me, you, Ron.
Yeah, go up there. I mean, it'd be worth it. I mean, if you had 2 or 3 days, you could figure it out and have the opportunity to catch like a 10-pounder.
Mike said he used to be the security dog for the truck.
That's it. All right. We're pretty much caught up. I'm going to let you go. Good luck, man. Good luck this weekend in the Bass and Bob. And good luck next year on Toyota Series and the BFLs if you jump in. And once again, appreciate you jumping on here with us.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I had fun. Like to do it again.
Definitely. Definitely. Sure. So we're going to sign off. And everybody, Happy New Year's. And hopefully you get some time out on the water. Next week, we're going to have John Cruz is going to jump on here with us next week. So looking forward to that. And then the other side of that, it's open. So we'll go week by week.
Sounds good.
Try to bring you the best guests that we can.
Very cool.